Hello, everybody. Hopefully, you have tuned in. I'm sorry I'm a couple of minutes late. This is my first time, so I'm really excited that you have joined me. And I'm going to talk to you today about clipper over comb technique. So, some of you may be like, yes, I'm so excited because I have no idea what I'm doing, and this is going to teach me a lot. Some of you are further along in your careers, and you're kind of going, oh no, this is something I've already really got. Either way, I want you to learn something from it, away something from it, and I'm going to show you little subtle nuances along the way. So, clipper comb technique. I'm not teaching an actual haircut here, I'm teaching the technique. So, if you want to think about it in music, it's more like I'm teaching you the scales of music, I'm teaching you the song. Because I want you guys to learn this technique so that you can create all the music in the world, or all the haircuts in the world, if you will. Okay? So, this may seem simple, but simple is not easy, and remember that. So if you are learning for the first time, be very gentle with yourself. Don't, there are no mistakes, it's all practice. I practice yoga, and it's all about practicing yoga. It's not about the end result. You just want to keep getting better and better and better. Again, if you're new, slow down, take every subsection, really pay attention to the nuances of why you are doing what you are. Another thing that happens is people move on really quickly, slow down, get a guide, get it perfect to where you want, and then just copy it the rest of the haircut. If you are really advanced and you're kind of like, oh, okay, like I've done this a million times, I would encourage you to do a couple of things. Number one, create a new shape that you haven't created before. So use this technique in order to create multiple angles to create one fluid haircut. Another thing you can do is take somebody, let's say, either a coworker or you could go to a school and teach somebody. And when you teach somebody how to do something, you have to get on autopilot and you have to explain to somebody why you do what you do. And you'll never learn something the same way until you teach it. So if you're already good at it, go out and teach it and get more people at this because we need good hairdressers out there, or barbers or stylists or whatever we call ourselves. Okay, so where are we at? So I'm gonna start. Well, let me just explain this first. So this is a fundamental technique in men's haircutting. A lot of people, even though they do this all day behind the chair, don't necessarily do the clipper over comb technique. They use a lot of guards, or they use a lot of shear work, or whatever it is. So I just want you to be really comfortable with this technique. When you would use it is when you want a little bit further from the head, because it allows for it allows for longer shapes. So I can work out in this space. I wouldn't work out here because that's too long, but I would work about right here because it creates really nice shapes. Whereas guards leave those little hairs, if you know what I'm talking about. Like they'll leave those tiny little hairs, and that's why you see those people scrubbing over and over. With this, it should be one clean swipe. And then you can also, you don't follow the round of the head when you do this. And so when you're using guides, a lot of times follows the round of the head. This allows to create more shapes, especially if their head a little wonky, then you're able to create better shapes and give the head a better illusion. Where I wouldn't use this technique is really highly textured hair, especially if it's coiled, because what happens is the curl pattern is so tight that when you go to pull this hair out, it often gets stuck. So what I would encourage in that situation is pull that hair out and then kind of cut it out here, or you can use the comb for tension a little bit, but overall I wouldn't do that. The other place I wouldn't use this technique is the hair is very short and it's below one blade. So this is the clipper that I use. I always use this clipper, and it's the Andis BGRC. We'll have a link below after the video, but I always use this clipper. I love it so much. Oops, fits my hand really well. It fits my hand really well. I just love this clipper. On the back is a number one blade. I always use a number one blade. I get that a lot for questions. Always use a number one blade. And this is my large wall comb. I also have a link to this below as well. They're really cheap. It's like $1 or $2, maybe it's more, I don't know, but it's a cheap comb. But these are my two tools that I use for clipper over technique all of the time. So I'm gonna kind of jump right in. Make sure I went over everything. I'm gonna start on the right side of the head. I always start right side because I'm right-handed. If I was left-handed, I would start on the other side of the head. The reason I start on the right side is because I want to establish my guide in the mirror, okay? And so once I establish my guide, then I just simply follow my guide throughout the head shape, or throughout the head, so that there's a level of evenness. If I start in the back, what happens is, this is kind of hard to explain, but what happens is if I start in the back and I move right and I'm right-handed, establish my guide here, and I'm always moving from my guide to uncut hair. If I move the opposite way and my guide is here, I'm trying to connect into my guide. And so for that reason alone is why I start on the right side of the head. But the other nice thing is that the clients always are able to do it, and so you can establish that length up front and make sure that you're both comfortable with that length before you move on. That's why I started on the right side of the head. The other thing is that I'm working on panels. Can you hand me that mannequin head? Oh, right there. That one. So this mannequin head, this mannequin shows the panels about the subsections. In hair cutting, we use smaller subsections, but this is what we use for cutting. It's about the width of the, oops. It's about the width, or I guess it's a little bit wider, but these are the panels, you can give or take. I always call this the detail and niche work along the bottom, and these are the panels. So that's about, if you notice when you get to the back, it gets a little obscure, so that there's, sometimes it doesn't go quite as nice. Sometimes I have to do this and then back like this, behind this ear panel, if you will. I'll show you when I get there. And then, and it's about the shape. Even though I am technically, the technique is removing weight as I move throughout the head, there is a design element as well, because I'm creating the design as I remove weight. However, I'm not going to talk about design right now. Design is going to be another video, and right now I'm just going to work in more of a vertical shape. When I do a vertical shape, there will be a little bit of length left on the top. And the reason is because the head, curvature of the head will round out, so it naturally leaves me a little weight. So if I pull this out vertically, there's naturally a little more weight up top. It's obvious, but you'd be surprised. And then if you, a couple of things too, that when you're doing the clipper over them, I see a lot of ear cutting, so people get nervous. They don't want to quite go flush with the comb. If you're nervous, just pull the comb, because you should be going flush with the comb like this. You probably can't hear me. Sounds not the best, but we're working on it. Videos are better. So no air cutting. We want to go flush with the comb. A couple other things that I don't do is I don't do this way. Sometimes if I have to get in at an angle, I will get in at an angle, but then go, oh, I don't do this either. I see a lot of this. This kind of stuff and this kind of stuff, a lot of it's based off of fear. But again, what I want to get you guys to feel comfortable with is a rhythm. You know, I don't have to be the best dancer in the world to know when somebody else is a really good dancer. And the same goes for hair cutting. People know and understand when you're good. And part of what makes somebody really good is finding that rhythm. And that's why I invite you to really slow down, because it's kind of like learning the scales the wrong way. Speed will come with time. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're learning it correctly, so that when you speed up, it's correct, and then you're not making a lot more errors, just faster. Okay, so that I really, really, really want you to just slow down. And I say this because I've taught all over the country, and it's probably the number one thing that I tend getting people to do is just slow down, especially when somebody is in the chair, because then they get nervous and they feel like they're performing for somebody. So anyway, and I'm teaching you a technique again. I'm not teaching you a haircut, so we're going to stay very vertical. But the reason I say this is because a haircut is just a variation of shapes and angles. And so I'm not worried so much about that. Again, if you're advanced, go off and try it. But if you're just beginning, you want to stay pretty vertical, so that, because sometimes just getting something really even, as smooth as a Coke can, if you will, is actually harder than creating all the different angles. The way I think about it is the straight shot and bool is the hardest for me. If I have an angle on something, it's easier, but another day, another time. And then a couple of nuances. What's interesting and what makes this a little more difficult than guards going to learn it, and it creates a higher skill set, you have not only the nuance of the comb this way, the angle of the comb, but you also have the angle of the comb this way. And not only that, you're also adding this in, which gives you the angle of the clipper this way and this way. So there's, it's a higher level of a skill set, but when you learn it, it actually gives you more opportunity for different shapes, which is why you can do a lot more variances with it because of those angles. Another thing that I want, that I see a lot, that I see a lot happen is people, people take too large of sections when they are moving throughout the head. What I mean by that is they might go here to here to here. They might take 3. If you watch me cut, I take a lot of little sections in there because you're working with 2 straight tools, a very round head trying to create a round shape, right? So with that said, I mean, you have to take really small micro angles, and I can sometimes I draw this out for people, but basically as I move, if I move tiny, I'll create a nice solid round shape. If I move too big, then I start creating a stop sign or an octagon, and then what happens is if my sections are too big and I go like this, there's little points in here, and we're trying to remove those as we go. So those are kind of the nuances. I'm going to do this clipper over comb just to show you the technique, and then after that I'll tell you a couple of common mistakes that I see. I have a feeling you will not be able to hear me over this clipper on the microphone, and I'm going to take a sip of water. But so I'm just going to do this. I'll come back with the common mistakes, and we'll kind of conclude, and I'll give you some practice points. I'm going to go a little shorter. Can you see it okay?
Yeah.
So again, I'm not focused on the haircut, I'm focused on the technique. Where my body is, where are my arms, in front of it. Here's my guide. Okay, so a couple of things I want to point out. Again, I know this is not the best haircut in the world, but that is the technique, not the haircut. I'm not showing you a haircut, I'm showing you the technique. And a couple of things that I really want to point out is when I'm moving up, it's a lot of little sections, right? So I'm moving this way. As I move over, kind of like a subsection, if I make it between my fingers, I use a little of the previous section and I use the new section. The same idea holds true. So as I move up, my next section actually includes all the previously cut hair. So just remember that, because again, if I move too much of the angles, it's going to create peace along the way and it doesn't create a cohesiveness. Okay, a couple of other things that I see often is that, one thing I see often is if you notice that this line up here, what happens is a lot of times people will take this around and then it gets really short at the top back. So just make sure that you're dropping this down here. And then when it comes to the other side, then what happens is people forget to come back up. So then they get a longer side over here. So that's a really common mistake that I see. And another common mistake I see is that they take the comb up this way and then they keep following the round of the head this way. So even though they're doing clipper over comb, they're not leaving enough weight up here, which creates, is that 20 minutes?
15.
15, okay. 15 minutes in. Thanks for staying with me. We about 5 minutes. And what will happen is they move up the head and then they just keep following it because they keep chasing hair, if you will. So just be really conscious of what vertical means, because again, this hair is going to naturally drop out as you move up the head. I hope that makes sense. And please, I turned the chat on, so if you have any questions, you can ask away. Even though I don't know how to answer them through technology. And then, yeah, not falling into this top section. So again, this line should, the head is round, and so even though we have these straight tools, we're creating this high aesthetic, and high aesthetic design actually it actually creates a shape that is desirable for the head. And if you bring this horizontal line up too high and create it too level-headed, it's not an attractive shape. I could show you plenty of photos on Google what I'm talking about, or even that military look where it gets very horizontal throughout there. One thing, if you find yourself doing that, just drop your partings. Lower your partings so that you are able to save that weight through that top, through this area right here, okay? Another thing that I see is when I'm moving through, people will often hold their comb up this way, but then they move the spine up this way. So they move it out of fear because they don't want to take too much off. But then on the flip side, they're just following this up. So it really doesn't, so my point is make sure that you're keeping this comb kind of as neutral as possible. But make sure it's not dipped in either, because if you go like that, that's going to create holes above it. So there's this kind of sweet spot of making sure that these teeth are bit, because the spine is a little wider on the bottom. Make sure that the teeth are out a little bit, and then as you're creating a really solid. I think that's it. I could keep going. I'll just go on a little bit more just because we're here. And then just kind of watch my technique. Again, the haircut, not the prettiest thing in the world. I would probably go a lot shorter with it. I'd probably taper the neckline. I would do a lot more too, but I want you to focus on the technique. Important. I remember one of the and I hold my comb like this. It's called a C-shape, or you hold it like this. And the reason is I see a lot of this. So and you don't want to lock your wrist when people do this. So they'll go like this, and then, or they'll go like this a lot. And when you're working with really straight hair, it's not necessary at all. So as you move up, if you notice, I kind of move up through the top, then I comb it down, and I have fingertip control. That's why and this will give you better tip control. It won't lock your wrist and it doesn't hurt your shoulder as much. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Angle here. So again, I know I would go through again and maybe create a shape and building weight. So I might come back and go a little shorter to where I'm building up weight. And I left a little left on here, obviously. But the idea is that you're not creating kind of these nuances. This thing looks funky. I'll show you on a real person next time. I'll get a real model. But the idea is that it's a technique and it's not an actual haircut. And so that when you come back through, just that shape a little bit, or keep this shape vertical and then build it, weigh it through the back and then come back to vertical. I mean, these are the things that I want you to think about in forecast. Another thing I should really think about is think about end in mind. So when a client sits in the chair, rather than thinking, I'll just get in there and kind of do the same thing and then adjust it accordingly, you have the idea in mind of what's going to look good on him, and then you execute it as you go. So many times I see people not do, they kind of know they don't like this section, but they go on just to see how it is, and then when they come back to it, they're doing 2 and 3 haircuts, they're running behind, then they rush on the detail and finish work. This is removing the bulk and the design at the same time. So you want to really slow down so that you create an efficiency, so that you have to go around one time, and it gives you a lot more time for your detail and finish work. So I'm going to leave you with this. I want you guys to practice, because that's what it takes. Life is practice. Okay, there's no result, like we want it to become a result so much, but it's practice. This is, again, a life lesson. So I urge you to practice and find your rhythm. So when you practice, it's true in any sports, any music, any haircutting, any skill or any talent. When you watch who practice and paid attention and moves with intention, they will become more masterful in their craft. The other thing I leave you with is I really invite you to be comfortable with discomfort. And again, this is a life lesson for me. If you start expanding your boundaries of what you feel comfortable with and move past it and move beyond it, then it will really open up a whole new world, and it will switch your mindset into going, oh, it wasn't that scary, and then your boundaries go, and your boundaries grow, and then you grow. So just make sure that you're always kind of pushing that edge a little bit, so that your level of comfort grows, because we all know those people who are really stuck in their ways, their mindset, and it's just not and it's not healthy in relationships, it's not healthy work environment, it's just not healthy. Really get comfortable with discomfort. Okay, so whatever that means to you, everybody's boundaries are different, but push that a bit. Again, life lesson here. Third, I have the links below. I just have a couple of tools. Again, everybody asks me what I use. I don't have a lot of tools. I just have quality tools. I really like the best of the best. So everything that I put in my links, I've used, I believe in, I would vouch for. And then lastly, it's all about the shape, right? So it's all about the shape that you're creating. Think about the end result. And if you want, you can hashtag it's all about the shape, and I can comment on the pictures. And my Instagram handle is @Bushi, BUSHI hair, @Bushi hair. And you can find me on there. You can tag me, whatever you want, and I'll respond, I'll comment. And thank you guys so much for showing me the love, and you guys have been great. And we'll see you soon, and I'll do something else. If you want to comment below on what my next class should, let me know. See you soon.